Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where of course it is now time to bring the AMG GT R Roadster, the newest Shmeemobile, here to Topaz Detailing for paint protection film. It will be first heading today through the wash bay. We'll go through the motions before later applying some paint protection film to get this car ready to go out on the roads to be enjoyed, and I'm sure there are going to be quite a few miles ahead. I've got some big plans already in the works. Of course the GTR Roadster is in the Hyacinth Red paintwork. I think I've decided to keep the wheels as they are, the satin black with the silver rim, and of course the yellow calipers which match with some of the yellow details inside. But it's great to have the car here, which means I will finally be able to start driving it. Until this point I've only really been looking at it in the garage, waiting until it's protected, until we can take it out properly. So let's get cracking on then, the GTR Roadster here at Topaz Detailing. In a moment we will be taking the car inside to get the process underway today, and then later on I'm actually going to be driving out in the GTR Pro. The Pro is here. Topaz have done the swap over of the diffuser after it got damaged recently, parked in a car park. They've swapped it, installed the new diffuser, done the PPF on that. So let me talk a little bit about what's going to be happening with the GTR Roadster, the convertible version of the GTR Coupe I used to have, and the Pro of course that I have now as well. I'm looking forward to having the two cars actually together here at Topaz. The first time we'll see them side by side, but this is going to be getting the run through the wash bay to completely decontaminate it. As you guys know, this car was sitting at the dealership for quite an extended period, so it probably has picked up some contaminants in the meantime. So it'll go through that process from washing the wheels to going over all of the surfaces, through all of the panel gaps and the different areas around it. Then it will be going for a light detail before it gets the paint protection film. Now for this car I'm going to go for the front end and the sills, the high impact and vulnerable areas. It gets, well, easy to carry or get carried away doing the entirety of every car, but we'll start with the front and vulnerable areas to make sure that I can take it out without worrying about it, and of course start building up the miles, because at the moment it's only got 60 or so on the clock. It will also get a full clean through the interior of the car. I mean, it's looking pretty good. Obviously at the moment, brand new car, the black leather, the yellow stitching that we have around the yellow seat belts, some very, very nice details. So I think this process is going to get underway. We'll swap the plates over, obviously to my new plates that have the quote on the underside. So we'll follow some of the work as this goes through before later on heading back home in the Pro. Great to get that one back on out again. And look what is emerging. So the car now has the new carbon fiber diffuser, no longer with the damage, thank goodness. It's great to have that back. And this means we actually have the two of them together, the Roadster and the Pro. And yes, I'm sorry it's so overcast and grey today, it's actually crazy, but those look awesome. The red and white, I cannot wait to also get them with the SLS Black Series, the red, white and blue, all in the lineup. But yes, a bit of a movement around with the cars before this will be going in. This is cool, this is really cool. The two AMG GTs side by side. I'm loving that, absolutely loving that. We're going to take a quick photo, I think. With the two of these side by side, there are actually a few things that are interesting to notice about them. Of course, the Pro is beefier, the extended splitter, the flicks around the side, the livery that it has as well with the stripes. But inside, there was something I've always talked about to do with the spec of this, which is how you couldn't choose, well, you couldn't choose the spec of either of them, but inside here, it has the fairly cheapy plastic dashboard and the door top rolls as well, instead of having the upgraded leather, which I had on my GTR Coupe before, and again have inside here, which is just a lot nicer. I know it's small details, but in a premium car like this, it's just a nicer thing to have, the upgraded interior. And this car also has the upgraded Burmester sound system, which is immense as well. So a few details, like I've said as well a few times, instead of the standard performance or comfort seats as I like to call them, I am going to be installing a set of buckets exactly the same as these, but with the yellow stitching, with the yellow AMG badge I think up on the headrest, and those will be going into the GTR Roadster in the not too distant future, as long as we can work out the ECUs and all the configuration for things like the airbag and not having the air scarf and that stuff as well. We'll see what happens. Anyway, let's get this inside. I tell you what, the new cars are fairly quiet to begin with. This car might get significantly louder, but to start, the 4-litre twin-turbo V8, or bi-turbo V8 maybe I should say, it makes a little bit of a grumble, but not as much as I would like. Looks good on the move. Sorry, it's taken a while to get to this point, to bringing the car into the wash bay. A familiar spot for many of the Shmeemobiles that have been through here, where we're going to go through the motions now, giving this a thorough and proper clean, a full wash down, to obviously make sure that the surfaces are all prepped, basically to look good, but of course also for the installation of protection film that will then keep it looking good into the future. The process is underway. Step one is always with the wheels, starting off with a rinse down. Get the wheels prepared, the wheels fully cleaned, using the right tools, the right brushes. That's the starting points, of course, typically from a car that's been out on the roads. Those would obviously be the dirtier sections, the wheels and the arches, before approaching some of the bodywork. This is where it's all about using the right tools. Brushes to get through the spokes and around the back of the brakes and the calipers. Of course, at the rear wheels, we've got the 20-inch, but smaller calipers we have up front. And then, of course, after that comes the spokes with the other brush as well. This is where, obviously, with wheels like this, you want to make them look perfect as you can. We've got the steam coming through from the arches being washed on the other side at the same time, all happening simultaneously so we can get the car through the wash bay and inside the main workshop. And obviously, the more spokes you have, the more work this involves, but the brush is completely appropriate for the purpose. And even though this car is obviously very clean, it's just been delivered, being parked in my garage, being driven around a little bit, a couple of miles, so it still has a little bit of dirt on it, which obviously you want to clean up, because when you protect it, you're locking it in. That's when it's all completely finalised, and you need to get it right before that. You can see up on the front wheels where you have the much bigger brake discs. Obviously, the brushes squeeze in through the gap, make it possible to actually get there. So the guys cracking on, big thanks to them for their work to get this ready. The car has been shuffled forwards. It now gets the first run over, and of course the wheels being rotated means that you can access from the other side to ensure that they are fully spotless. This is where, of course, the dirtier areas like the rear bumper and the diffuser and the side skirts, for example, get a proper run through. And the diffuser of this car is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. You have the central exhaust tailpipes, you have the side exit type pipes as well, which are actually where the louder sounds come from, which have the carbon fibre heat shields against the gloss black. The diffuser, where the GTR Pro has a carbon diffuser, here you couldn't spec the carbon for the diffuser, for the rear wing and for some of the other components. But obviously this will also have to get some PPF to protect it. Vulnerable areas are what we're going to be working on with this car as opposed to the whole thing. Standing back for the rinse down, things start to get a little bit noisy. Two guys working on the car though, many hands make light work, going all the way around it. Be interested to see actually what needs to be done with the roof of the car. Slightly different process. Obviously no PPF on the roof like we normally see with the Pro, for example, which has the carbon fibre roof. Slightly different to this. And in fact, maybe we should talk about doing all of it. We'll see. I'll have that discussion shortly. A very important part now is to take a very fine brush and go through all of the different areas. So through every opening, around all of the badges, around the lights, through all of the panel gaps, through the vents, because this will unsettle any dirt that's accumulating, even going around, for example, as you can see, the parking distance sensors. And by the way, this is actually to do with airflow at the rear bumper, the way it releases some pressure by having the openings you have back there. But literally going through everything. Of course, as I said, the plates will come off, and in fact the number plate plinth that the plate is mounted to will also come off, so that we can, so that the guys, I should say, can do the PPF to the red paintwork underneath that. But this is literally a case of going through every single nook and cranny, as you can see, all through the panel gaps, through every part of it, to make sure it's, well, going through all of the stages correctly. Now the traditional wash, some shampoo all over the bodywork, over every surface except for the roof. The roof does get a slightly different procedure, but again, going all the way through it, underside of the wing, every single area. And of course the guys have just about every type of car of this class coming through, as you can imagine, including many AMG GTRs, GTR Pros, and in the future GT Black Series, so they know what they're looking for and they're going through it. To do all of the underbody areas, a different sponge is used to avoid getting any dirt or grit inside the other wash mitts for the purpose. So all of the lower sections, like under the sills, under the diffuser, under the front splitter, for example, and around the wheel arches, the areas where you're more likely to have dirt. And of course, back for a rinse down. First rinse down is the shampoo. After a rinse down, next up is to go around all of the panels that are going to be getting PPF, claying them. So going through the full car, obviously starting at the moment with the bonnet. There's a spray on the surface to make sure this works, but the clay will pick up anything that is left there, anything that hasn't been removed during the other stages of the washing process, especially over the surfaces that you might not spot. This uses, I guess, some experience with the technique, using the clay bar to shuffle it around, rotate, and go over the entirety of the remainder of the car. As you can see, starting from the gigantic bonnet on this car, which is a very large piece of PPF, obviously to do with how almost vertically aligned relative that the front windscreen is on the GTR, having the mid front mounted engine. We're making some good progress getting this ready to go into the main part of the workshop. Of course, it then gets another rinse down. Apologies for the noise, it's very loud, of course. But after the rinse, it is time to use the proper towels to give it a complete dry down, patting down the towels, the large, very soft microfibers all around to make sure it's ready then to go on. The last part of the drying process is to use different towels to go around everything, like the door shuts, through all of the other parts, like I guess also under the bonnet, around the boot, those kind of areas that you'd expect, so that it's completely dry before it goes inside, ready for PPF, or all the other cars are being worked on. Of quick look as well at the engine bay while we're here. The 4-litre bi-turbo V8. You get the name of the one-man, one-engine who was responsible for assembling the engine in a Falterback, home of AMG, where of course I've been a number of times with that power plant that sits just behind the front axle. Front mid-engine, basically I think my favourite configuration for a car to use for a lot of grand touring, but also pretty dynamic while you're out driving. Somewhere like the Nürburgring as well, which I'm sure this car will do as soon as the place is opened up again for the next season. Now it gets really loud. The airlines, always the final part to get rid of the last few drops, but I'm going to step away because that's pretty noisy. Ready to be pulled on out then? So just to be swapped around with some of the other cars inside at the minute. So this will go out, then we'll pop it over towards its bay, where the next steps of this operation can begin. But yeah, this car is looking cool. Incoming then, another familiar spot. This will be pulled on through and parked up in its bay. With the car in situ, here's a part of the process I've never properly looked at before. So at the moment, there is a sample piece of PPF that has been installed to help with the templating. Now remember that Topaz make their own templates for all of the panels for the car to make sure they are absolutely perfect in the way that they wrap around edges, for example. And one of those aspects is to make sure they work around badges. So for example, here on the sides of the car where you have the V8 bi-turbo badge, the template actually needs to move from one car to the next because of the way these are assembled on the line in Sindelfingen near Stuttgart in Germany means that each car basically has them slightly moved, a millimetre off, whether it's forwards, backwards, up or down, whatever it might be. And making these templates means that the full piece of PPF that goes on, the one single piece that goes over the entire quarter panel, basically has those correct and doesn't need any adjustments or any badges that are taken off or changed. The original ones can stay in place. While the car is here, let me show you quickly turning on the light on the camera. Now, of course, factory paint job, as you can see, some small holograms, some small orange peel as well in the paintwork. You can be perfectionist, and of course Topaz have many different services. You can go all the way up to their level 5 where you have a complete mirror-like finish. This isn't too bad. As they come, the paintwork could be better. A lot of people wonder why factory paintwork, especially on cars like this, isn't perfect. Well, basically, it's very much a manual process. It takes hours and hours and hours of refinement, polishing, going through the various stages to make paintwork look immaculate, which is why Topaz, for example, who specialise in the subject, can do it to the different levels depending exactly what the customer would like to have on the car. Given it's going to be under the PPF changes the appearance a little bit, but we're going to be doing, I think, a small touch-up to it over those panels, but ultimately it wouldn't really be worth going the full hog. So it'll just be a little bit to prepare the car, to prepare the surfaces, get it ready to have PPF, which will be installed all the way around the front. Obviously the lip in gloss black, the bonnet, the wing panels, as we come around the side skirts as well. Door mirrors are a vulnerable spot. As I mentioned earlier, also the diffuser around the very back, but obviously not on the heat shields. You can't PPF the heat shields. Well, that's going to be a little bit of a problem as well. But all these complicated shapes to make sure they stay looking nice in the future. And I think also actually the rear bumper too, which is slightly vulnerable, as I experienced recently on that side of the GTR Pro. But I guess from the top, those side of things, it's not going to be having too much work. And just to tidy up as well on the inside before collection, to make sure this is all immaculate too. For the time being though, I guess I'm going to be leaving the car here, heading out myself with the Pro, and then coming back to see it soon for an update on the progress, and maybe the first drive, or the first proper drive we could say, with the GTR Roadster. For now though, it is time to head out again with the GTR Pro, now that it's all fully fixed up and ready to go again on a very windy and particularly overcast and grey day. At least it's not raining, but it was just over a year ago now that this car came here straight after delivery to get its full coverage paint protection film. So all over every single body panel, the roof, all of the carbon fibre, for example on the front splitter, even the flicks, as Mercedes AMG call them, the canards, as I think most people would call them, the carbon pieces that you have for the aero around the front corners. But then in addition to that, Topaz also installed the new stripes, the piano black, the gloss piano black, very, very dark stripes that create the contrast against the Designo diamond white pearlescent paintwork, which normally would be shining a lot brighter than it is now, but very much the grayscale theme when you take those along with the titanium grey wheels. So having the black brake calipers, an exclusive as well for the GTR Pro, but these replaced the standard satin grey stripes that you had from factory, so they run over the bonnet, along the doors, even over the roof, and I quite like this. The really dark stripe that you have here against the exposed carbon fibre, just a subtle detail, and then continuing down to the boot lid as well. And it makes me wonder, to an extent, if maybe, like my friend Rana65556, reflected on his GTR Roadster if perhaps I should put some stripes on that car as well, but maybe if I did them in the yellow to match with the interior and the calipers, it would be overkill against the red. I think red with that much yellow might be a little bit too much, whereas on this car, it just makes it look a little bit more sporty, a little bit more, I guess, like a race livery, and it works overall because that is how it came OEM, with that stripe design exactly from the factory. For the time being though, it's parked alongside a very nice Ferrari 16M, the limited convertible version of the 430 Scuderia 16M, to celebrate the 16 World Championships that they had in F1 at the time. For me though, GTR Pro heading out. It is not going to be too long now, I guess, until the arrival of the GT Black Series, and then how cool is that family photo going to look with the Pro, the Black Series and the Roadster, although maybe the Pro won't entirely hang around. I need to decide what's going to happen with that because having 3 of them is totally overkill. I'm really sorry that it's very, very, very windy, but let me wrap things up there. We'll be back here at Topaz again very soon to see the PPF work and then take out the Roadster for a first drive. A big thanks as always to the team for their patience, for their efforts. It is hugely appreciated. I can't wait to get that car now on the roads and go forwards with some of the plans. Right, I need to get out of the cold. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.